Getting Hardaway Sutton T back with another EP. And I got some highly interesting news, in the wakes of Canelo Alvarez fight with Dimitri Bivol. I feel like it ain't been getting, that much coverage. I ain't been seeing too many people, hit on it. But in the wakes of all this, and also in the wakes of Spence versus Jordanis Ugas, you know what I mean, in the excellent fight, I believe at the 147-pound division, Earl Spence stopped Jordanis Ugas in the 10th round in Dallas, Texas at Cowboy Stadium. I think that was one of the better fights, of the year. And the fans have kind of been spiraling, and the fans have been buzzing, since then. And we rolled that into Shakur Fight Week, Valdez, Amanda Serrano, Katie Taylor, Franchon Cruz, Cedrus. We ran it right into that weekend, another big weekend of fights. And, we still, so now we buzzing off 2 weekends of fights, you know what I mean? And then we kind of roll into Canelo Alvarez fight weekend. And I'm going to admit to you, I haven't seen, too many people overly excited, about this fight. I'm doing the live stream right now on how that I think Dimitri Bivol is a good opponent, but I don't think Dimitri Bivol's name is heavy enough for people to get interest into Canelo Alvarez fight coming off a Caleb Plant fight, in which I think Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant did such a good job with the build-up. They got people going. They got people was emerged in there. Those are a tense situation between Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant. When those two guys, met up, those press conferences were intense. Those sparring wars were intense. You know what I mean? We had the whole dust up. It was a physical altercation at one of the press conferences, you know what I mean? So coming off a fight of that magnitude, and that fight did, magnificent as far as, pay-per-views, and both fighters, got paid handsomely. Those are fight, they had to build up, for like a year or so, or even back then, even like a year or so ago, Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant were in negotiations, making, negotiations falling out, couldn't get the times right, and even Bivol was too, back then he would say, I'm going to fight Bivol, never transferred, but the Caleb Plant one, kind of stuck. So he fought Caleb Plant in a big fight, and then he comes back and he says, I'm going to fight, Jamal Charlo. We all knew about him fighting Jamal Charlo. It was a deal in the works. Him and Jamal Charlo was going to fight. The first rumor was $50 million, then it came out, for it to be $45 million. So him and Jamal Charlo were going to fight for a near $45 million. He had the people buzzing again. Did Canelo Alvarez coming off a Caleb Plant win, going to fight Jamal Charlo. You know what I mean? He had the people, speaking on, he got the people speaking about, the possibility of us finally getting this Jamal Charlo fight. If I'm going to tell you now, Jamal Charlo and Canelo Alvarez have a history. They competed at the 154-pound division together. They competed at the 160-pound division together. And they also competed at and they were about to compete at the 168-pound division, which is what I'm talking about now. But, Canelo Alvarez decided not to take the $45 million deal. You know what I mean? And also, if Canelo Alvarez, wanted a second fight, the rumor, it came out that he was going to fight David Benavidez for about $50 million. And Canelo Alvarez, decided to not take, the PBC deal of Jamal Charlo or David Benavidez. And he decided to take the DAZN deal of Dimitri Bivol and Triple G, which was less money. At first it was reported he was going to get $45 million for Dimitri Bivol. First reported he was going to get $45 million for Charlo, and then DAZN came and matched it with another $45 million deal. That was saying he was going to get more money for the DAZN deal, but it came out that he was getting equal money for both deals. And then DAZN added a Triple G fight, on the back end for another $45 million. You know what I mean? But the PBC added the David Benavidez fight on the back end for $55 million. So essentially, Canelo Alvarez took less money to fight on DAZN, on this contract. But not many people knew, and this just broke This came from Tom Brown himself, and I'm going to read it, straight from the article, so y'all know it's not cap. This came from Tom Brown, who is the spokesperson of PBC. I'm going to, read the article for you guys real quick. It said the first two fights of Canelo Alvarez's 3-fight reunion deal with DAZN and Eddie Hearn Matchroom was revealed this year. If the Mexican icon defeats Benavidez on Saturday at the T-Mobile Arena, and Alvarez moved back to 175, he will 175-pound division to the 168-pound limit for his long-awaited third showdown with Gennady Golovkin. So what I just said right there, because I kind of was proofreading, you know what I mean? It says that he's about to go from 168 up to 175 and then back down to 168. Now, it says what hasn't been revealed is now that the exact offer from Al Haymon's Premier Boxing Championship and Showtime that Alvarez turned down to accept the DAZN deal included the option of pay-per-view fights with undefeated champion Errol Spence Jr. Tom Brown, whose company TGB Promotion represents Spence, Jamal Charlo, informed Boxing Scene PBC offered Alvarez $45 million guaranteed to fight Jamal Charlo on Saturday night, and if he would have conquered Charlo, a $55 million guarantee fight to either Spence at a catchweight of 164 or David Benavidez at the 168 pound limit. And this came straight from Tom Brown himself. You can see this interview on Boxing Scene. So this is a real deal. I just wanted to be. I had no clue that Errol Spence was also a part of this deal. I did hear everything about the Jamal Charlo and the David Benavidez situation, but Errol Spence being, on the back end of that deal, or actually Errol Spence being the option, because I think that was kind of smart. I think that was kind of smooth and cool by the PBC and Tom Brown to do that, because by doing that, if Canelo Alvarez says, well, I want to fight David Benavidez at a catchweight, instead of bringing David Benavidez down, a person who already has trouble making the weight, at 168, who has missed weight on the scales before, instead of bringing him down and draining him, you just slide in Errol Spence, who is a worthy opponent, worthy opponent, worthy champion, and you just keep it going. So Canelo Alvarez essentially could have made more money taking the PBC deal than the DAZN deal. We could have got better and bigger fights also out of the PBC deal rather than the DAZN deal. But Canelo Alvarez in this new information chose, not to fight Errol Spence or David Benavidez or Jamal Charlo. I'm literally doing a live stream right now about how Canelo Alvarez fight isn't really being talked about, because it's not against a person we want, not necessarily it being a good fighter. Well, Errol Spence, David Benavidez, and Jamal Charlo qualify as good fighters and fights we want. And I think that his fight now is kind of lackluster, because instead of giving us fights like this, he give us fights like Benavidez, good fights, but fights that we didn't ask for. But that's all I got. Tom Brown revealed that Errol Spence was on the back end deal on that PB. My bad. Not even the back end deal, but he was, an option at a catchweight at 164 on that Canelo Alvarez deal. But that's all I got. Skin the Hardaway Sudden T.